I think as we discussed today with the panel, and there were some very interesting insights there, where magazines I think are innovating. However, it all goes back to what is the reader looking for and how can magazine eventually go beyond features. I think a good interesting way to look at that lens is with digital, as one of the panelists said. Eventually, digital becomes like a holding box, and then magazines are providing the content for it. So why should magazines not be complementing that media rather than looking at it as a competition? So if magazines are able to look at a 360 as brands do, where it's not just about creating content and then putting up in a 50-page magazine, but looking at that content and try and decipher that or segment that across different forms of media. So what does a tweet feed from a magazine like Outlook mean? And it doesn't need to be confused about creating an online version of Outlook. So I think there are different roles which magazines can play, and innovation, if it happens using that context of media, I think it will be great, because then they would probably have transcended from just becoming an online digital version to actually using the leverage of that particular media, whichever they want to go. Representing the portfolio of brands which I do, I think magazines play a very important role. And stickiness of readers, trying to not confuse between, or trying not to distinguish unnecessarily between content as legitimate, credible content versus branded content, I think is really the only other point of view I have at this point, where branded content, as long as it is telling a story and is relevant for consumers, can easily be embraced by magazines, and it doesn't need to get discarded as something which is not credible. So as long as we are able to see that one-on-one interaction happening, innovations using various spheres of 360, including digital, and thriving and using branded content as well, perhaps where consumers need to do those stories. I think if these three are consistently driven, where brands can help magazines and vice versa, I think that will be good. So fundamentally from the research, I think a large part of our thinking continues to remain consistent with the research findings.